It's time for another double indie game review here on the channel. For this episode, we have two very different Metroidvanias lined up, with the food-obsessed Dungeon Munchies and the, angel dystopian obsess of Angel's Gear. We are starting things off with Dungeon Munchies. So this is a kind of Metroidvania, with a pinch of Monster Hunter thrown in. We play as a resurrected zombie of a necromancer slash master chef in a world where all fruits, vegetables, and edibles are, now sentient and alive. And if you think that is the strangest twist this game will go, you are severely mistaken. The story is really great, but it does go to some very dark places as a bit of a warning. So, our main aspect here is that the Metroidvania progression is not tied directly to finding upgrades, but finding ingredients. As you play through the game, you will unlock different food ingredients based on the enemies that you kill. Those ingredients can then be used to create food, and the food itself is basically a combination of buffs as well as passive and unique abilities. Some food will enhance sword swinging, some food is meant for shield builds, gun builds, so on and so forth. And you can only have so much food, quote unquote, equipped on you at one time. You will eventually be able to get more recipes, even upgrade them to provide additional benefits, and it creates this kind of quasi-RPG Metroidvania style build. You'll also be able to craft new weapons, there are hidden recipes as you explore the world, and the game itself is just really built on this idea of kind of creating your own build through the Metroidvania design of it. It also can get a little bullet hell in some aspects when you get to boss fights who have desperation phases, and it can be a little bit on the difficult side in that respect. But I really do like the progression model of it. With that said, I did have a few misgivings. The game can feel a little bit repetitive at times, because the majority of the weapon upgrades are just all pure upgrades. It doesn't really give you a lot of fine-tuning or choices that you can make. If you're going to go for a sword build, well then swords are all you're going to be looking for. Gun build and so on. And I would have liked, a little bit more in terms of upgrades. The game waits very long to actually unlock the ability to swap between different stomachs, aka different builds, as opposed to having to do it all manually by hand. And I would have liked that upgrade to be a lot earlier in the game. Now, Dungeon Munchies was in development early access for quite a long time, and you can definitely tell kind of with the variety and the difference in challenge as you go through the game. The first quarter to a half, which was in the early access when it first came out, is by far the simplest and also the easiest parts to get through. The back half is far longer, far more challenging, and again, this is where the story goes to some very interesting places I don't want to spoil here. Now, there have been some talks on the forums that keyboard and mouse may be the preferred way to play it, as the gamepad may not be fully supported. I don't know if there was an update released since then. I did play this on keyboard and mouse and found it alright. We did find a few bugs and softlocks in a few spots that I had to reset to kind of get around. But all in all, this is a fantastic Metroidvania, and I really do like the concept, and I hope that we see this get developed further in another game, as the game does end with some very big and some very cheesy goodness sequel baiting. But if you are looking for a different kind of Metroidvania, one that is more about kind of progressing through the world to make yourself stronger, as opposed to just finding kind of stock upgrades or the game limiting you with those upgrades, then I definitely recommend Dungeon Munchies. So with that, I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have the other Metroidvania to look at with Angel's Gear. And if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then be sure to check out my game design books. For entry-level students, we have 20 essential games to study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with more coming soon. We now turn to Angel's Gear. This is from the same developer as Vomitorium, which was the first-person Doom meets very post-apocalyptic Metroidvania. We're kind of keeping with the post-apocalyptic nature of things, but with more of a somewhat traditional 2D Metroidvania design. In a very unusual story, the apocalypse has been brought to this world. Creatures and eldritch things have inhabited this planet, and the world for, well, everyone except for us is either dead, undead, or turned into strange creatures. As the only remaining human, we are going to have to figure out how to stop whatever it is from destroying any more worlds. And to do that is going to be up to the power of Metroidvania. But where other Metroidvanias tend to go for a very expansive, long-term kind of focus, Angel's Gear kind of feels a little bit shorter and more intimate. You'll only get a few handful of upgrades, and instead the challenge of this game is kind of about making use of your various weapons to deal with the enemies. The enemies themselves run the gambit of strange monsters, demons, and other things. Your main weapons include being able to use your melee and your gun, with your gun getting different bullets or types as you get through the game. You also get this additional form that you can see right here that gives you additional abilities and changes your own movement tech. You can heal yourself Dark Souls style with those crystals that you see in the upper left, and the upgrades in this game are basically your standard more health, more ammo, that kind of thing. As you go through, again, the progress through this one is kept very basic, and I do think that may be a little bit to the game's detriment. At times, Angel's Gear feels like more of an experiment with the style rather than trying to go beyond and kind of develop it, I think, as far as it could go. And like I said, this is on the shorter side. I think we beat this in about 2 to maybe 2.5 to 3 hours on stream. Some of the later sections do get a little bit difficult when they introduce instant death pits and spikes, but there's always a save around, and you will also get additional moves including a super jump and other things I won't spoil here. But I did like this game, and I think there is certainly more here to be explored further in terms of, I guess, more of a combat-centric Metroidvania rather than one that is exclusively focused on movement tech and platforming. So while the last game is certainly more about kind of the movement, run and gun, or even shmup style, Angel's Gear is certainly slower pace, and it does introduce some concepts again that I think could serve to be expanded on. So for this one, if you're a fan of a traditional Metroidvania or an Igavania or anything like that, I don't think this game is going to be the best for you. But if you are looking for kind of a slower paced platformer, not exactly like a flashback or an Out of This World, a little bit faster than that, I think this could be an interesting one to check out and see what you think of it. And I do hope, much like with Dungeon Munchies, we get to see more of this kind of style in the future. But with that said, we're going to wrap up this double review here. I would like to thank both developers for giving me press keys to check these games out. If you want to see the complete plays of them, there will be Let's Plays uploaded to the second gameplay channel. As always, if you want me to look at your game for a future piece, please reach out. Do the subscribing, liking, bell ringing, and all that other good stuff. Check out our Discord and Patreon link down below, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games.